It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays, and this one's gonna be short because I only have so much time to do this. Cthulhu's hiding. It's been a busy week, and getting the content done this week has been a bit of a challenge with a bunch of extra things that have been on my plate this week. The patrons will hear about it. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for somebody who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. I just don't talk about personal stuff that much on YouTube. I don't find, hello makeup bag. I don't find it particularly interesting. I'm introverted. I don't really like talking about myself unless it's as an example of an idea. That's just me. It's not right or wrong. But today we're talking about letting go. Letting go of bitterness, letting go of anger, just letting go. Letting go of these things that drive us crazy. And of course, this is once again inspired by Johnny Depp and Amber Heard stans. It's nuts. The stuff that, I've met some very, very nice Johnny Depp supporters. And this is just my own personal experience. I can't say the same about the hardcore Amber stans. That's just been my experience. There may be some utterly lovely ones out there, but of course, this isn't surprising, right? Hence the title of the video, because one side won, the other side lost, and the losing side in this one is having trouble accepting it and moving on. And we talk about letting go, we talk about moving on, we talk about closure, we talk about, all this stuff, forgiveness. It's Not Therapy next week is going to be about forgiveness. It's Not Therapy this week is about boundaries. But what does letting go mean? I know I've talked about this before, but it's time to revisit it, I think. What does letting go mean? What does moving on mean? And what it basically means is you're no longer defining yourself in your life by how you've been hurt. And a lot of people, this is why I'm talking about this now. I saw a lot of people view the Depp Heard thing not through the wisdom they gained through a difficult or traumatic event, but through the trauma. And that created a very sort of one-sided view. And I make a distinction between the wisdom gained or the knowledge gained through a traumatic event and the trauma itself, in part because I had this utterly wonderful conversation. It was about heavy stuff, but with somebody about the whole Depp Heard trial. And it was about, the one subtype of borderline personality disorder that is violent. And I say one subtype of borderline personality disorder because not everybody with BPD is violent. There are 4, I believe, subtypes. An inability to regulate emotions is a marker of BPD. An intense fear of abandonment is. But violence, only one subtype. And I think that's very, very, very important to talk about because there are people out there living with BPD, managing it. They are no harm to anybody. Perhaps themselves sometimes, but they are no harm to anybody else. They're not violent. And I didn't always feel that way because I had to deal with a woman, borderline, I hate the term histrionic personality disorder, but it was the same thing. What Dr. Curry diagnosed Amber Heard with. And yeah, you didn't have to tell me, all the markers were there. And I had a conversation with another woman who had a similar experience in her past. And we were both talking about how, yeah, we saw this, we saw this, we saw this, we saw this, we saw this. But we do have compassion for Amber Heard, even though she did terrible things, because she's ill. And that's what happens when you can let go of that anger, bitterness, fear, hatred. And a lot of people are going to get mad at me for saying I have compassion for Amber Heard. You know, I have deep compassion for Johnny Depp, despite all his struggles. And, you know, perhaps because of his struggles. I mean, it is not his fault. It is not his doing that his mother abused him when he was a child. So I have compassion for both of them. Obviously, I have my views for what happened. And they are based on my own experiences with this kind of particular personality type who will construct these elaborate, we can say the word now, hoaxes, because the jury decided that that part wasn't defamatory. They create these elaborate hoaxes to try to stop someone from leaving them, or to maintain a connection with the person they're afraid is going to abandon them. And it was a really good conversation because we were both talking as people who had been through it, right? Who aren't being controlled by it anymore. And that's why it's very important to let go of this stuff. And I separate letting go from forgiveness. I don't think you're required to forgive anybody. Again, I'll talk about that next week. But you can let go of these feelings, of these bad feelings. It is a conscious act. The process is different for everybody. I'll talk about it in a bit. And it is a process. Processing is a process. That's why it's called processing, right? But what's really important is that all those bad feelings associated with the bad thing that you experienced are no longer part of your identity. Some of you may have heard the It's Not Therapy interview with Tanya Caller, where she referred to her experiences with breast cancer. She didn't refer to herself as a breast cancer survivor. She referred to herself as experiences with breast cancer. And I love that language because you'll notice I am very careful not to say I was a victim, I was a survivor. You know, I don't refer to myself in those terms. It's something that happened to me. It is not something I am. You know, I don't think it's healthy to internalize things that happen to us as part of us. It's because you never let it go if you do that. And if you feel like defining yourself that way is comforting in the short to midterm, okay, great. Do whatever gets you through the day. Right? But ultimately, you have to separate what happened to you from who you are. Because you are not the bad stuff that happened to you. You are how you handled the bad stuff that happened to you. And that's why the process is different for everyone, right? How did I do it? How did I process? How did I let go of some pretty terrible stuff? I mean, those of you who watch this channel or watch my Twitch stream or watch my Twitter or whatever, I've had a pretty hardcore life, right? I did it, one, by making changes so I didn't repeat the old patterns. That was really, really important to me. But I also did it by, you know, using those experiences to have empathy for other people. That is a very, very, very important part of my process, because what's very important to me is that I don't perpetuate the cycles that led to the terrible things that happened to me. Because, you know, through empathy, through processing, I realized that yes, people are ill, but yes, people are very bitter. And it is that bitterness, I think, more than illness, that causes people to do terrible things. And do I forgive the people that did those things to me? No, not really. Personally, and this is just me, I won't die on this hill, but for me, to forgive another person, they have to want to be forgiven. But I can let it go. And some people may say it's the same thing. It's like, no, I'm not going to give that person another chance. It isn't okay. Things are not okay between us. But that doesn't mean I have to relive it or wallow in it or have it define me. No, I moved on. And I do that by not giving them any more of my emotional time or energy, giving that mental emotional time and energy to people who want better, who want to overcome their bitterness, who want to be happier. And that investment in people who are willing to do the work is the way I move on from terrible experiences with people who are not willing to do the work, who blame everybody but themselves for what's going on. And I find that working with people and celebrating their victories with them and giving them encouragements when they're down, that keeps me motivated positively. And it's like a cleansing from the bitterness and the fear and the anger and all that stuff of the past, or bad days now. Like I said, that's what works for me. It doesn't work. Different things. Some people need to sit with it. I do need time on my own to think through lunacy. Things need to make sense for me to process them. And sometimes the way it makes sense is this doesn't make sense and I just accept that. No, there's no lesson to be taken here. This is just bananagrams. Move on. Okay, fine. But I have to have that process. The important thing, because I'm running out of time, because I have something in the oven while I'm recording this and I don't want it to burn. But as long as you keep revisiting those feelings and thoughts, as long as you're bitter, as long as you're angry or fearful, that person and those experiences have control over you. And that absolutely explains some of the absolutely insane social media experiences we've been seeing, like behavior we've been seeing. Totally explains it. It's people still seeing things through their anger, fear, and bitterness instead of letting it go and seeing things from a place of empathy. Those bad experiences, those bad people from their past are still controlling them. And that's why it's very important to process and work through and let go. Okay? Hopefully that helps some people in this process right now, because things are raw right now. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching and be well.